Hello, Amber here, and welcome to my podcast, The Design Tales. I'm a knitting pattern designer, and this podcast is a place where I share my designs, new and sometimes old, and talk about the inspiration behind them, techniques, hints and tips for knitting and styling, and anything else that seems to be relevant along the way. I'm also happy to answer questions, so if you ever have any, pop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do in a future episode, or if you have ideas of things you'd like to see in a future episode. Today's episode is part 3 of Halloween 2025. This is the 5th year that I have run my Ambah X Halloween KAL or knit along, and each year I add new patterns, new designs to the Halloween bundle. Participants are invited to choose any of the patterns in the bundle to knit in the KAL. And this year, I'm also inviting participants to use any of my patterns as long as they erify it a little by adding something Halloween-esque. It might be colours, it might be using a black yarn for a lovely lacy shawl to make it a bit more Halloween themed, or orange pumpkin yarns, or using those beautiful yarn sets that dyes have created especially for Halloween. Pretty much anything goes. If you feel like it's Halloween to you, I'm down for it. We're mostly hanging out in my Ravelry group, and there's some beautiful knitting happening there. The KAL started a couple of weeks ago and runs through to the end of October and a few days after as well, just to give time to finish up and post pictures in the finished object thread and be eligible for the prize draw. Today is October 1, so it is well and truly the start of the season of Halloween, and there's plenty of time to knit something gorgeous to wear for the 31st or during the month. Part 3 today, I'm introducing a fresh design. In part 1, 2 weeks ago, I also had a fresh design for this year's bundle, and that was the Ghost Knitter's Cowl. So if you didn't see it there, it features a ghostly lace. And in that episode, as well as talking about this new pattern for 2025, I talked about the evolution of how I got to this pattern, because the first Halloween KAL featured a pattern with this lace, and that was a Betwixt shawl. That was in 2021. And in the years since, I've published several more skull lace patterns. So there's a hat, a cowl, the Calvaria hat, the Calvaria cowl and scarf, and also the Ghost Knitter's shawl, which inspired the cowl. So episode 1, I explored those quite thoroughly, and because I haven't had the podcast in previous years, I just wanted to revisit some of those older designs. So there's a bit of a Halloween special over these past few weeks. Last week, I talked about designs published in 2023 and 2024, and shared those, as well as a couple of others that are previous designs, or not specifically Halloween bundle, but I have since added them to the Halloween bundle because they might use 13 colours, or one features moon phases. So go back and look at episode 1 and 2 of the Halloween special if you want to hear more about those designs. And today I specifically want to talk about my new design, which is the Aranea collar. I'll pop that on. It's a cute little collar and it knits up so quickly. A tester said today that they knit the knitted part of this in 4 hours, and I would agree. I knit a few when I was making prototypes for the pattern, and yeah, I would say I could have knit one and embroidered in a pretty solid day of effort, certainly over a weekend. You could finish an Aranea collar too. So I was inspired by ready-to-wear fashion. I saw a cute little web collar attached to a dress, and I thought, oh, that's a really fun idea. I think I'll make a little removable collar, and thought that would be a really cute addition to the Halloween bundle. So I spent a little while experimenting with a few ways to make this work. I have one of the prototypes here where I play with different embroidery thread ideas. So the collar is knit in a lace weight yarn, something light and airy, and the shaping creates this patterning. A few weeks ago, before I embroidered mine and started the test, I recorded a little segment to add to show you what it looks like before the embroidery. So I'll just pop that in now. Hi, it's past me from a few weeks ago. I've time travelled back to September to show you the Aranea collar before I had embroidered it. So here's the before, and you can see it's more subtle than the embroidered version. Still effective, very cute, and it's just knit, so you don't need to embroider for this. The patterning is just due to the different stitches used. Let's see what it looks like turned around. So yeah, back to your regular programming. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I then embroidered this and I made a tutorial which is part of the pattern. So you can see it's not necessary to add the embroidery flourish onto the collar, but it really does help that web pattern pop out. And you can use different types of yarn or colours of yarn. I used a solid lilac here. This is a colourway called Holographic Dreams. I think it's actually leftovers from this cowl that I love because it gives that shimmery effect that I think is a bit like a rainbow shining on a spider web. I tried some metallic threads and a neutral, just a plain neutral. So there's quite a few ways that you can embellish this to make it your own. You could also add some beads, have little dewdrops perhaps shining on your web, or keep it simple like the unembroidered version. As part of the design process, I did experiment a bit with, it ended up being an intarsia having the fingering weight, which I ended up choosing to embroider, knit at the same time as I was knitting the base of the collar. And I almost went that way. I just found overall it was quite fiddly, the technique, and just didn't work as well as I would have liked. But it would have required 7 or 8 separate balls of yarn for these colours, as well as the main colour. So it was going to be quite a juggle to carry all of those yarns. And then I knit the sample without a second colour and felt that that would be enough on its own. So you could have a subtle version, which you just saw before the embroidery. And then also decided to add the embroidery option, which I think just gives it that really cool pop. So the project is cast on from the bottom and worked up towards the neckline, the neck of the collar. It's worked flat back and forth and finished off with a little button and buttonhole to do it up. It has an I-cord edging up the top to create a neat finish. And there are 4 sizes in the pattern. So you would choose a size based on your neck size and then add a couple of inches to give it the amount of ease that you'd like, so it's not too tight. Another tip is with a swatch, the pattern says to knit a plain swatch square. And that's because with the shaping, the stitches are quite distorted. And when I was attempting to measure an overall gauge, it was quite different at the bottom to the top. And so I felt the best way would be just to work to a standard gauge swatch, and that way it would be more universal. So that's why that's included in the pattern rather than an in-pattern gauge. But there's a tutorial that comes with Passion that talks about how to embroider. It's a really simple chain stitch embroidery, and I think it's really worth doing. But that said, yeah, it's definitely about what inspires you. It can be knit with any lace weight. I think if you're going to not use mohair, you would probably need to embroider the flourish to really see it. With a mohair, that contrast really does work quite well. Let's see, the light, without necessarily embellishing it. Here you go, it's better on the dark. Whereas a more solid lace weight yarn isn't going to show that as clearly. And then you can have fun. I think it would be so fun to knit this in a day glow neon yarn and wear it out to somewhere that might have black lights so that you would glow, or use the colour that you're embroidering with, make that a neon glow colour again so that that part just glows. That would look really cool. There's been some beautiful versions knit in the test knit in a range of colours, and they all look so good. I love the dark ones, which would look great over lighter clothing, and there's been a few variations of the lighter, just white or cream, and yeah, they all look fantastic. So the name, when I was about 4, I was given this book, which when I started to think about a name for this project, I thought about the book and decided on Aranea for the name. And then I was really happy to discover that this book is still in my son's library of children's books. We haven't kept them all, but luckily we kept this one. It certainly was a childhood favourite of mine, and it's a really beautiful story about a spider making their web again and again, and about the perseverance and it being destroyed through various means during the story, and Aranea starting again, starting from scratch, building her web, and a couple of times she builds a perfect web, but we end with the very perfect web. And it certainly reminds me of being a knitter and knitting, and that kind of, not necessarily that everything has to be perfect, because I don't think it does, but that undoing, redoing, trying something new, starting again. I certainly relate a lot to the story as a knitter, unravelling my knitting and re-knitting it, and until I'm happy with it. So that's perfect enough for me when I feel satisfied. So it's been a lovely reminder of that favourite childhood story and to revisit. And I think it's a really cool little addition to a Halloween outfit, or just to get in the mood for October, or even to celebrate the new season of Wednesday, perhaps, if you've got a bit of goth in you, or someone that you like to knit for does. It's a nice, simple, quick knit that you could make for someone as a little Halloween gift. Aranea is published now. I'll have links below in the notes to the pattern on both Etsy and Ravelry, and also to my blog that has detailed information about the Halloween KAL. We've still got 4 weeks if you'd like to, or more, 4.5, 5 weeks, if you'd like to come and join us in the knit along and knit Aranea or anything else in the bundle, or Halloweenify any of my patterns. You're all welcome to do that, either in the Ravelry group or with the hashtag Ambah X Halloween KAL 2025. I'll pop that in the notes below too. And yeah, it's the end of my little Halloween series. Each episode's been quite short and sweet. I hope it's been a little bit of insight for you to the patterns and inspiration. I don't have any styling tips particularly for this one. Pretty much would just wear it like that, although potentially it could be something that you have 2 buttonholes, would be a modification. Like this dress sort of opens here. I could actually button it to the opening and wear it something a bit more like that, perhaps. So there's an option, but yeah, there's not much in the way of styling tips. Hope you have some fun with this sweet little pattern and the Halloween knit along in general. I'm looking forward to seeing what you make, and I'll be back soon, very soon, with I'll be back in a few weeks with a fresh pattern to share with you. I have a few more patterns to release in October. It's going to be quite a busy month, although they're not necessarily Halloween themed. That said, come to think of it, one I'll be releasing in a couple of weeks could well be a fun Halloween pattern. So we'll chat about that then. Thanks for watching. See you next time.